Okay, hello everyone, I wanted to say. A very warm welcome to today's webinar. I am Max, I'm one of the founders of Mara, and I am very happy that so many of you joined today. Let's maybe take the first minutes. I've seen the participant list. I know that many of you know Mara already, but some don't. And usually people need some minutes to join the webinar. So let's take 2 or 3 minutes for me and allow me to introduce you to Mara and to also explain to you why we are doing a webinar on how your hotel is potentially found through ChatGPT and Co. So Mara is an AI-first online reputation management tool. We are thankful to be loved by many of our customers. We're currently top rated at Hotel Tech Report and have this little badge of the best reputation management software 2025. Why is that? We'd say Mara is the easiest way to a 100% response rate to all of your feedbacks. There's one central inbox, as you know it from reputation management tools. Mara works in any language. You get the highest quality AI replies for all of these reviews. And we have something we call the night agent. So overnight, Mara produces replies for you. So you just need to check them in the morning and they are ready to send. What makes our replies the best? They are very much in brand, so it's not just some GPT blah blah. And then secondly, Mara kind of knows your hotel and knows how to reply to specific topics. Secondly, we give you very actionable insights on what your guests like and what they don't like and where you might need to improve. And it's very important for us that you don't need a lot of time to gain those insights, but actually can act up on the insights that you gain in a very short amount of time. And we just recently shipped a new feature. We call that Ask Reviews Anything. And you can actually really kind of talk to your feedback and ask Mara what people are saying about the breakfast, for example, if they have any suggestions for improvement, and then we will scan all your reviews and feedbacks and give you a very specific answer to your specific question. And all of that, replying to reviews very simple, also helping you collect feedback. We'll talk about that later on. And making analytics super simple and feel like a walk in the park. That actually constitutes a very good online reputation management tool from our perspective, and that is why we have the rating we have and I showed you earlier. Now, enough about Mara. Let's dive into the actual topic of today, and the webinar topic is how ChatGPT and Co. are changing the way that guests search for hotels and find hotels. And I hope that together we will come to three main conclusions today. The first being understanding that guests no longer search, but that AI kind of curates hotels for them, and that the trust in those AI-generated suggestions is extremely high. Secondly, and we'll go through that step by step in the next about 30 minutes. The second key takeaway is hopefully that the basis for these AI suggestions is kind of the entire internet. So what once took hours for a human to search and do research on now just takes some seconds, and that's important to understand, and we'll talk about why that's important. And third, that you can actually do something about your visibility within this new world of AI search. And that can be done with consistent up-to-date content and then also a very strong review management, and we'll explain why that's important later on. This slide is more of a reminder for me because I always forget that. You, of course, have the chance to ask some questions and we'll try to answer them. In the end of the webinar, you can use the chat within Teams for that, or this Q&A feature. You can also post questions there anonymously so that no one sees them, and we'll receive them. And also my co-founder Toby is monitoring this. If there is any question which makes sense right where I am, he will also, of course, interrupt me and pose that question directly where I am. So let's start with the first of three parts, basically. And that is, how do guests actually search for hotels in this new world of AI, so to say? And I think it makes most sense to start with a kind of a little live demo. Now, I know that there is different level of tech savvy or not so tech savvy people here today. So some of you may find that very basic, but I still think it makes sense. So let's say someone is traveling to Berlin for 2 days the next week, and he or she wants to stay near the Brandenburg Gate and is looking for a mid-range hotel with excellent breakfast, which is also dog-friendly. And instead of searching the web and scrolling through the results or Booking or TripAdvisor, Expedia, whatever, he or she will simply ask tools like Perplexity, ChatGPT, and Gemini. And I've done so just before the webinar. I posted this question to Perplexity, which is, some of you may not know, a very similar tool to ChatGPT, but more focused on actual research and answering questions. And it will give you a list. Unfortunately, we don't see the pictures today. I don't know why. It will give you a specific list of hotels which it thinks are relevant to the question that you asked. It will also give you a map of the hotels and where they are located within Berlin, some pictures. It will give you the sources very transparently that it used and the steps it took to answer your question. Same goes for ChatGPT. Most of you will know that. It will also take into account your question, give you information on the dog policy, the breakfast that's important to you, and so on. And it will also give you all the sources that it took into account. So, for example, Expedia or hotel websites or Bring Fido, which is probably a blog where people talk about pet-friendly hotels. It will have taken a look at Booking, Expedia, and so on and so on, and all of that. And then also Google Gemini, which basically does the same thing. So very similar, not similar results, but very similar in what the tools do. And you can, you know that as well. Also, of course, ask follow-up questions like, are you sure about the dog policy? And then ChatGPT will again do research on the suggestions it did and give you an answer on that. And by the way, all of that up here, that just took 32 seconds for ChatGPT to give that answer and to digest all of these sources that we see on the right-hand side. So this is how it can look nice and with pictures for Perplexity. GPT also sometimes gives a map, and it will be very fast in answering your very, very specific question on hotels in Berlin. Now, this is very basic, I think, as most of you probably know how to use these tools. But examples for questions that guests might ask are recommendation questions, like what are the best boutique hotels in Paris for our honeymoon? Something I call attribute search. So is there a hotel in Barcelona with free airport shuttle? Comparison, is hotel A or B better, maybe in terms of X, Y, Z? And then validation, like are the beds at Hotel ABC comfy, for example. So basically, guests ask every question you can think of. And it also helps to think about what guests might ask in order to later on decide what information I need to provide and what information I need to optimize for and where exactly. And we'll talk about that a little later. Now, if we try to put that shift in simple terms, then we're seeing a development from a search engine to answer engines. So instead of having a search term, a query that I'm putting in a search engine, and I get a list of links, and I'll check these links, and I'll go through ODAs and filter there and so on. We see a development to answer engines. So I have a specific question, I'll put it there, and the tool will do everything for me. It will, browse the web, summarize everything it sees wherever, and give me a very specific answer to my very specific question. And the result of that is that guests no longer search for hotels, but that they let the answer engine search for them. And I think what's also very important to understand is that this is not the future, but that this is reality today. I mean, adaptation of these answer engines, they are not for that purpose, searching hotels, not widely spread, but it starts picking up. And it will definitely, so people are doing it today already. The tools can do it, as you just saw. And the future will definitely be something like that. Instead of scrolling through lists of hotels, I'll let the answer engine look for a hotel for me, or curate a list of recommendations. Knowing that, I think it's very important to understand the following. This is from a study from Accenture called Me, My Brand, and AI. And it shows that out of the users, out of the people that use generative AI, 36% see the AI as a friend, which I think is quite a large number. 87 would ask for relationship advice, and 93% would ask for personal development tips. So very, questions that, would need some trust, basically, if you were talking to a human. And also this, third of the users seeing the AI as a friend. I think that's quite interesting. And then even more interesting and important for the topic today is that out of these users, 83% rely on AI when it comes to making purchasing decisions. Consumers when it comes to purchasing decisions, but also potential guests when it comes to making a decision about where to sleep and in which hotel to stay at. So the takeaway from that is that answer engines, A, will be used for hotel search in the future, and that two, these answer engines massively influence what the guests choose, because the trust in what they give you, what the answer is very, very high. People will still check it, but if the answers are good, then the likelihood that someone will go to a hotel which is listed in this list of recommendations is very, very high. So now, if we understood that the AI is curating hotels for guests, and that is already reality today, and that guests are very much influenced by this list of recommendations, then we need to ask ourselves, how are these recommendations generated? And of course, in order to understand, can we somehow influence if we're included or not? But let's first focus on this more, it's not a real technical question, but on this more technical question on how this list of curated hotels is generated, basically. So what's the basis of these AI recommendations? And again, very simply put, it's any publicly available information. So for example, what you write on your hotel website, your own blog or social media profiles, content from the OTAs or review platforms, also user-generated content such as travel blogs or the reviews on OTAs and review platforms. We've seen some Booking and Expedia sites as a source in GPT and also Perplexity. Third-party content like online travel guides or Wikipedia, news articles, whatever. So answer engines, they kind of consume it all, really. The everything that's there, they try to consume it and try to pick the relevant pieces of information from everything that's available. Now, this information is kind of digested in two ways by the answer engines. The first one is the pre-training of these answer engines. So that's kind of the basic knowledge that these AI tools have. And the purpose of having such a basic knowledge is that it enables fast answers to more general questions. So an example would be, what's the most famous hotel in Berlin? And I think without searching, all the tools would tell you it's the Adlon Hotel in Berlin. And then there is live search. And live search is, as it is written here, real-time retrieval of very specific or up-to-date information. So that answers are matching questions if they become very specific. And a good example would be our question that we asked earlier, a dog-friendly hotel in Berlin. That's not in the core, the basic knowledge of the AI tools, but then they just start searching the web and try to give an answer to that very specific question. And then it's also reasonable to assume that if presumably specific questions are asked over and over again to the tools, that the results that the tools come up with, that they are at some point and at different levels integrated in the pre-training, in the basic knowledge of the AI tools. And that means that the earlier a hotel, for example, is listed in live search results of the answer engines, the more likely it is also that it becomes part of this basic knowledge, and that it kind of knows this is the 5 dog-friendly hotels in Berlin that I always recommend. It will always also try to update that knowledge, but it's again reasonable to assume that the more often something appears in similar searches, it will also at some point be included in this basic knowledge of the AI tools, which makes clear why it's relevant to be listed there early on. When we think about what information the answer engines, and presumably we don't know. We don't know. It's a black box for us. But we feel very certain in saying this. Presumably, the information that the answer engines are basing their answers on, they will kind of rank the information based on credibility. And then in our example, what's more credible, or maybe the better word would be more objective, is information that's found on OTAs, for example, or review platforms, or user-generated content like reviews or blogs, or websites with a high reputation. So, as an example, in the more in the general world, so to say, the New York Times has obviously a very, very high reputation when it comes to that domain reputation. And then less credible or less objective would be your own content, like the website or blogs and so on. And that means if you're saying your breakfast is great, the answer engine will probably not really believe it. They try to mimic human search behavior. And for information like that, great breakfast, they will probably not rely on your website heavily, but more on reviews, for example. And then also, of course, less credible websites with a poor SEO reputation. I think also very important to understand when it comes to how do these lists of curated hotels come up. There was a study published in Retail Times very recently, and 71% of AI-generated travel recommendations in Perplexity, GPT, Gemini, and so on are based not solely, but also based on reviews as a source of information. And with Perplexity, also a tool rising in popularity, it was 100%. So each and every search in this tool, which was travel related, was also based on reviews as one source of information. To kind of summarize that a little bit, again, put very, very simply, answer engines just try to use all the available information to provide the best possible answer. They try to, again, mimic human search behavior, give you the best answer. Why are they interested in giving you the best answer? If you're getting the best answer in tool A, B, or C, you will always use that tool. And that is why they try to give you answers that perfectly match the question that you kind of give to them, which leads to everyone kind of having a personal assistant now. So even for ultra-specific questions like the one up here, I am looking for hotels with a large selection of pillows in Berlin, wherever you would look for that, you will get an answer from the answer engine. And I tried it, and there are answers for questions like that. And I think what's really important to understand is that what used to take hours earlier now is available in seconds, right? We saw that GPT took 30 seconds for the search for a dog-friendly hotel with great breakfast in Berlin, and all the information that was digested, that would have taken hours to read all of that manually using search engines like 2 or 3 years ago. And also important, all this information that was always there, it was just not as easily accessible. So the tools are not using different kinds of information, they're using the same, but they are quicker in digesting and then curating hotels based on that. And one result of that is, and I think this is also important to understand, to also adapt to that shift and understand what's happening, is that every soft fact now becomes a filter. What do I mean by that? In this pre-AI search world, so to say, when looking for hotels on ODAs, review platforms, wherever, you had filter categories, like, is there a pool, yes or no? Is a breakfast included? What's the distance to the airport? So all the hotels and the hotel products were put into boxes like pool, yes, no, breakfast included, not included, and so on, in order to make it easy for the guests to limit the search results to only the ones that are likely relevant to the guest. And now you can freely formulate any preference that you have, and the tool again will give you answers within seconds. So filters, clicking some boxes and then having filtered results within seconds and limiting the time you need to do research and to decide on a hotel is today also possible, but super individual to your preferences. So an alpine hotel with heated outdoor pool, good vegan breakfast, a hotel with hard mattresses. You can ask everything that you want, and you will get answers right away. And you can decide what's important for you. And it's not decided by the filter categories that are there. And now to end that section, so to say, and since the stereotype about German people is that we're focused more on the negative aspects and what downsides things bring with them, I would like to highlight 2 opportunities for hotels of that development. And the first opportunity lies in differentiation, I'd say. What does that mean? Hotels in relevant niches will be better off in the future because it's easy for guests to discover them. They are not reliant on those filter categories that we just talked about. But if someone is looking for a dog-friendly hotel, if someone is looking for a great location for doing workation, if someone's looking for an adult-only wellness resort, whatever, he or she will pose that question to an answer engine and get very relevant results, meaning the hotels that serve that need are likely to be discovered more easily. And then also top performers win. So if you have a great breakfast, great spa, great design, if you're a design hotel or whatever, this also helps being discovered in answer engines. And that does not mean that your product has to be totally niche, but differentiation helps. Differentiation can also be as simple as an exceptional price performance ratio. That's a relevant preference of people. And if your hotel serves that, then you're also likely to be found by these people. And that's also a great side effect of that development, that kind of the right guests come to your hotel, right? So people know basically what to expect, and they found you because of something specific that they were looking for. And then very likely your product is a fit. And then secondly, if your product is a fit, that's a good precondition for very satisfied guests. And that again is a good precondition for good reviews. And that in turn, of course, will bring more guests that are a fit. So being good in a certain area, let's put it that way, will be those hotels will benefit from that development. And then the second opportunity is that direct bookings could increase actually with the answer engines. And that is because users are currently forwarded directly to the hotel. And I'm writing currently here because when the players become big and a lot of relevant traffic is forwarded to hotels, let's see if they don't capitalize on that. That's we can I could imagine that, but at the moment the search results include things like the website, the telephone number, and those tools forward the guests directly to you. So direct bookings could increase through these tools. Now, what do we do now? What do we take from that? And let me quickly take a look at the clock. Yeah, we'll need some more minutes. There's a lot of content here, but we monitor all your questions. We will answer them. I also have some minutes more after the webinar, and we will likely answer all of them. And then in the recording, the answers will also be included. So what do we do now? Again, as a reminder, we have this development from search engines to answer engines. So we now need to shift from search engine optimization to answer engine optimization. And we also earlier talked about the tools using all the available information that can be found. So hotels should try to control all available information as much as possible. And it's not entirely possible, we know that, but you should try to control it as much as possible. And what types of information are there? There is hard facts. So do I have an airport shuttle? Yes or no? What does it cost? And so on. And there is soft facts, more subjective things like the quality of breakfast. Talking about hard facts, those can be controlled very, very easily by your own content. And why is that? Because the answer engines will trust your website, and when it comes to this information, the hard facts, they will believe what's written on your website to be true. So if you write you have an airport shuttle, the answer engine believes that, right? So you have to keep your own website, the information on OTAs up to date and consistent. And then also your website needs to be answer friendly. And the good message is that SEO, search engine optimization, remains a very good basis for answer engines finding your website. Why is that? Because again, they mimic human search behavior. They are also doing web searches. And if you're doing a good job in SEO, then they will also find your website when it's relevant. It's a good idea to include FAQs on your website. So again, is there a free airport shuttle? Yes or no? What does it cost? And so on. And then they can digest that information. And it's also good to focus on what guests love about your hotel. You cannot overdo that, as stated before, but it makes sense to focus on that, again, because you will win in the areas that your hotel is well known for and that people love your hotel for. And then the question is, can I also control the soft facts that are out there about my hotel? And the answer is, it's a bit of both, yes and no. But we think that controlling these soft facts is really the key competence in the future when it comes to online reputation management. And why is that? Again, as a reminder, so many searches in those tools are based on reviews. And that is why it's very important to up your game when it comes to review management. Let's talk about some things when it comes to review management and why it's so important. What's super easy to control, and many people forget that, is your responses to reviews. So in this example, someone's writing the rooms were nice, but it was very noisy at night because of the street. And then you could answer, we're sorry about that. Unfortunately, the hotel is centrally located, so it can get, so it sometimes can get noisy. Or you can write something like that, thank you, and so on. For guests who are sensitive to noise, we recommend booking a room facing the garden. It is particularly quiet there. And the reason for giving that answer is, of course, it's a nice answer to the guest, but also it's out in the public. And the answer engines can digest that management reply and will include this knowledge in their answer potentially. And Mara, for example, helps doing that. We have something called smart snippets. So you can have kind of standard replies like this to topics that are recurring sometimes, for example, noisy rooms. And then this standard reply, but formulated differently, will be included in the reply that we suggest to you using our AI when this topic of noisy rooms is present in the review. What's a little harder to control is getting reviews at all. But it's, of course, important because many of the searches are based on reviews. And something I like to say is, and I'll explain that in a second, of course, that the post-stay survey is dead. Long live the post-stay survey. What do we mean when we say that? Many hotels are collecting feedback by sending out post-stay surveys, and they keep that feedback internally. Now, looking at the discoverability through answer engines, this feedback which is collected internally is worthless, so to say, because answer engines do not see it, right? The key to being found is good and many public reviews. So what you should do actually is, at the very least, ask your guests for public reviews. So sending them the Google, TripAdvisor, whatever link to review your hotel. Or ideally, you make it very, very easy for your guest to leave a review. And that is why we have this long live the post-stay survey as a title, because we are using post-stay surveys as a means, as a tool to collect more positive public reviews. And I brought a little video to demonstrate that. So this is our very simple post-stay survey. The guest gets that. He or she is giving 4 stars, writing something like, staff super friendly, breakfast was great, bed's a little hot, though, a little negative thing in there. And we will then ask the guest, hey, don't you want to share that with others? We will make a suggestion, which, by the way, also includes this little negative thing. So the only small drawback was that the beds were a little hard for my preference. But we take the words of the guest, make them a little nicer, and ask them, don't you want to post that publicly? And we leave that in, by the way, to make the review more authentic, which is also beneficial when it comes to trustworthiness to the answer engines. And also it doesn't backfire because people will not say, hey, you only put the positives in my mouth. I'll show you what I can do about that. So if the person is clicking reviews on Google, he will be forwarded to the correct page, can paste its text, give the 4 stars, and then send the review. So again, we try not to keep that feedback internal, but if positive, we try to make those people post that feedback publicly. So we talked about answering, we talked about bringing or making it easy for your guests to actually write reviews. Now, what's out of our control is the content of the review, right? And this question is so big here, probably gives you the answer. it would, of course, be great to ensure that there is not only positive reviews, but also that the reviews are containing these positive soft facts that we talked about earlier, like great vegan breakfast. And that is why we're currently building a new feature to help you do that. And we currently, at the moment, we're calling it Conversational Review Boost. That might not be the final name, but we wanted to share that with you early. So instead of doing what we just saw in the video, having the survey response and then generating a nice text from it as a review suggestion, we will have a step in between. And that is a follow-up question which focuses on the good things in the survey response. So asking, what did you particularly like about the breakfast? And then the guest will say, delicious vegan selection, great service, coffee was great, but wait time was a bit long, for example. And then we will include that in the review or in the suggestion for a review text, making it more specific about what the person liked and helping answer engines when they digest all the reviews that they see about your hotel to really kind of pinpoint all the very specific positive things that are there to say about your hotel. That is something we're currently developing, probably shipping in a month, a month and a half. And that way we try to help you not only collect more reviews, but also more reviews containing very specific knowledge about your property and making it easy for the answer engines to present that to the rest of the world, so to say. So again, there were hard facts, very simple for you to control, but that's also homework you have to do. Maybe get an agency for doing SEO and so on. And then there is soft facts, super important when it comes to the recommendations of the answer engines. And you can try to control them on a meta level, so to say, by doing very good review management. Last slide, zooming out again. What were the three key takeaways that I presented at the beginning that I think we will take away from today? Guests no longer search, but AI curates a very, very limited list of hotels. And it's important that you're included in that list because the trust in those AI generated suggestions is extremely high. The basis for the AI suggestions is the entire internet, your website, reviews, information in travel blogs, pages on pet-friendly travel, whatever is out there. And it's digested in seconds by these tools. And then you can do something about your visibility in those searches with content management and up-to-date content, but then also strong review management. We will now head to the Q&A section, and I guess my co-founder has done a good job in collecting all the questions. Before I forget it, I always forget that slide. If you have any questions left, not answered in the Q&A session now, or if you want to see Mara in action, have a little demo, this is my contact data, and I'm happy to do that together with you. And now let me jump to the questions we collected. So one block is, how does AI prioritize data and sources? How transparent are ChatGPT and others when it comes to the sources on which they base their recommendations? Super transparent. So again, this is sources in German, sorry. We can go in Perplexity, we can go to the sources being used. And it will show you everything. Okay, I need to sign up to see more, but it will show you every source that it uses. Even this is only one-step search, but sometimes it's also doing several steps of search. And it gives you the search, the sources digested, and then also, if it does several steps, the next step and the sources. In GPT, you see the sources here, and that's a lot of sources used. And again, it's then also very specific things like dogfriendlyhotels.com. And it's a good idea to try and think of questions that your potential guests might have, put them here, and then see what the answer engines base their recommendations on, to also know which content to prioritize and how to try to get in these recommendations. How does geolocation affect the way LLMs digest and reviews the information? I'm not sure if that's about geolocation of the one searching or the kind of if the question is geography related. But basically, in both cases, my answer is I don't know. It's a black box for us, but it's very likely that if I'm in Hamburg and someone else is in Shanghai, that there's different sources of information being used which are more relevant to that to the user. How do LLMs sort out verified information from non-verified information? I don't know, but I'm very sure that the engineers at these companies do a very good job in understanding, is this kind of first party information or is it third party? And also in assessing, again, in the hotel example, if you write on your website, there is great breakfast at our hotel, very likely the answer engines will disregard that information. But when it comes to features being listed, they will take your website as the ground truth, so to say. And it's fair to assume that those tools are already very good at doing that and will become better and better and treat that information the same way a human would. Can you teach AI to know you better by chatting to it about the property? Will it remember? Yes, it will to some extent, but it's about the one conversation. Also, 10 is not enough, right? You cannot actively, by chatting about your property with the tool, change in general how it will recommend the property to others. It's about the mass of information and interactions about something that it then step by step learns about, for example, the property. So this is not a very promising way of trying to influence the results of that tool. A Mara related question. How is Mara able to filter any skewed reviews? In what ground does Mara differentiate between objective and subjective information? So it sounds more like a question related to the answer engines. We don't differentiate between objective and subjective, right? Our tool helps you to answer reviews in the best way possible, to analyze what people are talking about when it comes to your property or properties and where you potentially need to improve, and to collect more reviews. It's only relevant to the answer engines if the thing review talks about is subjective or more objective. Reputation management in general, is it as important to respond to five-star only positive reviews as it is to respond to sub 5-star reviews with criticism? It is more important to answer to negative reviews, but there are a lot of studies which show that answering to all the reviews is the most beneficial when it comes to business impact. So a hotel that answers each and every review individually will have, I think, 2 times more bookings than the one only answering the negative, or the likelihood that someone books with that hotel is doubled. That's the correct term of putting it. Is there a way to know what the answer engine looked up on our website to guess what the question was? Currently not. No, they will not tell you, so to say. They will only tell you they took a look at your website. there is the idea of a so-called LLM .txt file on the website. I think we also had that on a slide about the SEO, right? So we have this sitemap XML, but then there's also this LLMs .txt. This is not a. This is only an idea currently floating around, and the idea is to have a better digestible version of your website with the most relevant information about your hotel on your website. But I did some research at the moment. ChatGPT and Co. They are not accessing that file. It could be something which comes up in the future. Limitations and what's next. What can LLM search engines not do yet? Are they already suitable for bookings or more for discovery? Does that include giving advice? Good point. Currently, it's mainly discovery, but again, it's fair to assume that this will shift more towards also booking. There is already, to be honest, I forgot the name, but there is one booking engine. If your hotel uses that, your hotel can be booked directly through Perplexity. And it's fair to assume that they will try to extend that functionality. And basically, they are probably trying to, in that area, become the next OTAs that are a little simpler to use, so to say, and then also get a share of the revenue. I guess that will be the direction, or it could also be that booking and Expedia and so on, that they are trying to get more like the answer engines and to make hotel search as easy as these tools do. So yes, currently mainly discovery, but very, very likely that it will also be booking in the future. How do you think LLM engines for hotel searches will evolve? Basically that, right? So more towards booking, more towards everything like actual travel planning. I mean, people, don't want to stay in a hotel solely. They are there for a reason, far from home, and then doing travel planning, knowing there is great restaurants around this hotel. If they know I'm a foodie, then they will account for that. So planning the whole thing around it, I think that's also the next step in that area. OTA, LLM versus general purpose. So OTAs will probably integrate AI-powered searches themselves, right? From your perspective, are there reasons why general purpose AIs might still prevail in hotel search? Difficult question. I mean, Perplexity, for example, they're not a general purpose model, so to say, but they're using OpenAI technology, they're using Claude and so on. So they are using those general purpose models to come up with a answer engine. And they have some focus areas, and travel is one, where they focus on to help people get answers to their questions. Yeah, that's difficult. I I think these tools, these AI first tools, they have a little head start because they just know how to use the technology. This is a little bit, it reminds me a little bit of us coming to hospitality. We are a natural language processing first company first. And we entered online reputation management as a category, and we're competing with companies that are software companies, but not natural language processing companies, which is why I'd say, of course, as a founder, that the AI part that we're doing much, much better because we are originally coming from that. So I guess in that area, those general purpose companies will be better or might be better suited or have a head start. But but booking hotels through the OTAs, they have everything in place, right? So that's a head start for them. We will have to see how it turns out. But I think that's maybe important for the takeaway that we have from that. It's irrelevant if it's Perplexity or Expedia or whoever. It will function the same way, and it will use the same information, and it will function the same way, and the takeaways are the same. In the future, what will we actually still need booking portals for if AI-based search and booking solutions keep improving? Do you think AI could even make platforms like Booking.com completely obsolete in the long run? Yes and no. The things that are done through Booking.com, Expedia, and so on, they will still need to be done, but agents will do it. And if that agent, again, if that will be Perplexity doing stuff for you, or if what I'm sure about is that the OTAs or booking portals, they will need to evolve much, much more in the direction that we just saw with Perplexity and so on. I think that's where it's going. We will still need to see profiles of hotels and so on and so on. I want to see where I sleep, right? In most cases. But I think that's the direction, and booking portals, OTAs, whatever you want to call that, will not look the same in the future. But they will obviously try to keep their position, and they will need to evolve in that direction, I think. Last block of questions. What can I do? Will AI provide a suitable critique of my website with recommendations how to improve visibility in AI searches? You can most definitely ask GPT, Perplexity, and so on by just giving your website and then making recommendations. That's very much, it's very likely that you will get a good answer. It's not a native functionality, so they don't have this service as a service, but they will very likely understand the question and why it's important that your website is suited for AI search, and it will give you an answer. What should I do now to optimize my chances of being visible in ChatGPT? Basically everything we talked about, right? Having all the relevant content on your website, thinking about what's relevant content, and then doubling down on review management, because the reviews will give a high volume of information that are thought to be objective about the subjective things about your hotel by the answer engines. How about blogs? Does it help? And comments in the blogs? Yes, everything that's online will help, especially if the domain reputation is relevant, or if the blog, as this pet-friendly travel blog that we saw earlier, is relevant for the question. It definitely helps to be included there. Is there a way to use ads or pop-up in guest search on ChatGPT when they look for a hotel? Last time in the webinar, someone said that GPT is doing ads. I didn't see any yet, but I guess in the future there will be ways of also doing advertising there. That's the case with every platform that's being used heavily, that they monetize on the usage in some form. So I guess there will also be ways to be included and pay for it, and then it will also be probably transparently displayed as being paid for. But at the moment, I'm not aware of a way to advertise in GPT, Perplexity, and so on. I think that is all of the questions. I want to say thank you very much for participating in that webinar. Again, if there is any questions afterwards, feel free to email us, and we're happy to talk to you. Have a great rest of the day, have a great week, and see you soon. Goodbye.